Hi, I'm Garm1, and this is Midgardia's cool crowdfunding show. I'm here today with Alad and Panny. How's it going?
All
Yeah,
good,
good.
thanks.
Thanks.
How are
Thanks
you?
for having us.
I'm doing pretty well. So, Panny, why don't you tell me a little bit about Salvage Union?
Yeah, so Salvage Union is a post-apocalyptic tabletop role-playing game where you play as a group of like ragtag mech pilots salvaging the wastelands for scrap. It's specifically like a very narrative focused mech game, and it's powered by an RPG called Quest, which is by the Adventure Guild, which itself is very simple and accessible, and that's what we wanted to do. We wanted to create a mech game that was simple, easy to learn, and that you didn't have to, read a whole bunch of rules to just pick up and start blowing up bits of robot from, basically. Yeah,
Right.
broad gist. Alan, anything else?
Yeah, I mean, mostly I just wanted to commission loads of robot art, so yeah, and just like cool landscapes and stuff. So yeah, and also I think, well, I know originally like the concept came from Adeptus Titanicus. My friends were playing, and I couldn't afford it, so I started designing my own mech game, and then I realized, yeah, I don't actually want to play a tactical mech game, and then that's when me and Panny got together, and yeah, we kind of did Salvage basically.
I mean, there's definitely a place for incredibly intricate damage calculations and like
Yeah.
heat calculations and stuff, but it's not always what you want.
Yeah, I
No,
mean,
that's sorry.
yeah, I mean,
It's,
I like.
we're so in sync, Panny. We're so in
So
sync.
insane. Go for it, Alan. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's a natural tendency of like that's where the design space in mechs tends to lead towards. Like it's I feel like yeah, as soon as you start thinking, oh yeah, let's make a mech game, that is what you start just making. It's just the default. So yeah, I think we just sort of made a quite conscious decision to say, hey, right, okay, how about we actually lean away from that? Let's keep only what we need to make it a mech game, and then sort of try and pull back on everything else, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, I love that noodly stuff. There's an amazing rule in BattleTech where you can have your like heat sinks in different areas, and if you have your heat sinks in your legs and then you go into water, your heat sinks are more effective because they're immersed
Yeah.
in water, but only in your legs. So, you're like tracking individual heat sink capacities, and you're like, this is amazing, but also, yeah, I've got things to do. I don't know. So yeah, we wanted
Has
to.
science gone too far?
Exactly. So yeah, we really wanted to do that, and the art, as Alan said, is awesome. We wanted to bring that world that like Hamish Freighter, one of our many artists, sort of conceived within his sort of imaginorium of art. I don't know. I think artists are basically magic, so because I do most of the writing, so we wanted to bring that to life as well. I think.
As a fellow writer, I agree entirely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I mostly just kind of like I just picture a final product in my head, right? Like right from the beginning, I have a thing in my head of like this is what I want it to look and feel like, and then it's just kind of making that come to pass. But then the difficult thing is obviously like then you can kind of get bogged down in the writing, and it sort of just doesn't like, oh god, now I have to actually do all of this stuff. So then that's why it's great to be able to like just throw take the writing and go, hey Panny, like this is your bit, right? I don't have to worry about this.
That's
Yeah,
what teamwork's all about. Yeah.
indeed. Yeah, no, absolutely.
So, what's the setting of Salvage Union?
um Again, different Panny.
Sure. So, yeah, Salvage Union is set in a sort of post-apocalyptic world similar to Earth, few hundred years into the future. A series of wars, as well as deforestation, nuclear strikes, and so forth, have made most of the world rather an inhabitable hellscape. But those wars have also advanced technology, of course, to the point that everyone uses mechs, and mechs are quite useful because they're a way to stop yourself from dying of radiation poisoning. And as it were, the radiation storms have blotted out large portions of the sky in the sense that like air travel and things like that are they exist, but they're very rare and dangerous indeed. Our opening scenario is about a crashed airship to drive that home, and without air superiority, mechs become even more like relevant within the scope of a battlefield, and also for day-to-day tasks like traveling, doing industrial work, farming, logging, all that jazz. And that's the gist of the world. And then you play within that a group known as Salvagers. They're effectively a collective of like scrappers, mercenaries, pilots who've come together, and they live out of these huge mechs known as Union crawlers that sort of stomp around the world, and they sort of scour the world looking for salvage and trying to survive. And they're sort of ideologically opposed to the corpos or the corporations, which are the 1% of folk who still own the vast majority of wealth and power in the world and dot the landscape in their cities known as arcologies. And yeah, that's the broad gist of it. I mean, everyone else in the world's a wastelander, just a common folk trying to get by, but probably doing so rather with difficulty.
Or crime.
Yeah, crime. Yeah, I mean, we wanted to avoid the kind of wastelanders are always going to, be stabbing you in the ear as soon as they see you.
Yeah, I mean,
but certainly, yeah.
Yeah, there's probably a good bit of both out there,
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Honest, hard work, salt of the earth folks, and then the guy with the knife.
Yeah. I mean, it's how you want to play it as well. Like, it's purposely quite a kitchen sink setting as well. Like, we've got kaiju, effectively, like we call them biotitans, and we've got strange aliens and stuff like that. So it's purposely like we also wanted to put as many mech and sci-fi tropes in there as possible, so you could basically do what you want with the setting, and we just give you some support within the rules for that.
Yeah, and speaking of the biotitans and like the art in general, there's a huge variety of mech designs and weird biological things in here. Alad, like, what were your inspirations for that kind of stuff?
So yeah, I mean, when we were sort of briefing it, like as I was saying before, like that sort of concept comes like really early doors. So like that sort of early concept was, I'm not sure like for your listeners if they will be aware of this, but there's a thing in the UK called a Haynes manual. It's Haynes if anybody wants to search it up, and it's basically like back in the 80s and 90s and 70s even, like everyone's dad had one of these like in their garage, right? It's a workshop manual for like cars, and they made one for like every car, every model kind of thing. And so like in my head that was always going to be like the cover, because like if you're a salvager, you're building your own mech, like attaching all the different parts, like this is what you need, right? You need a workshop manual for your mech, right? So that was kind of like the cover concept. So then that led us to our first artist, Alex, because he does these really kind of technical drawing style illustrations, and he works a lot on mechs as well anyway. So then I spoke to Alex and I was like, oh hey, here you go, like can you take these things? And then we were sort of talking about it, and we were kind of like, right, cool, well, look, let's not just draw bipedal sort of like Gundam or Macross or like even Battletech style mechs. And I love Battletech style mechs, actually. Like Mech Warrior 3 was one of the big inspirations actually for the game. So there's a little bit of that in there as well, but we also kind of really wanted to focus on what could look like industrial equipment repurposed for like a broader role. And so yeah, that's the kind of the direction that he took it in. Then we picked up on like Hamish, who yeah, I mean, to be honest, like I saw his art and I was like, I'm not sure, do I need to commission work? Can I just use like what he's already drawn? Like because it was just such a perfect fit for like my view of the setting. That it was kind of like, right, yeah, he was like an auto include, and I was just like, how much is it? Shut up and take my money. So yeah, he did the banner art for us, and that was that, yeah, we've got a lot of mileage out of that, to be fair, I'm not gonna lie. And then we brought Francesco on as well, because Francesco, again, like I came across Francesco because I was looking at sort of like post-apocalyptic wasteland stuff, and he's got a comic called Junk Lords, which I sort of saw, and I was just kind of like, right, okay, yeah, that's my wastelanders right there, right? Because he does a lot of art of like bolted together like vehicles and stuff like that. So we were kind of like, oh yeah, it's again auto include. And then, again, working with all of them, I found them a pleasure to work with. So late addition actually to the team is Mikkel Pledger, who I've done a couple of commissions with recently. He's done some work on some Lancer modules before, and I really liked his art style for perhaps more the corpo stuff. So one thing that we've sort of like touched on a little bit in the quick start, but not really elaborated on too much, is the corpo stuff. And we're probably going to be putting a bit more of that kind of out there as kind of like an antagonistic kind of faction thing, I think. So we'll be leaking a little bit of that, I think, in the coming weeks and the next year. It's like, so many influences like Dune, Mad Max, Star
2000
Wars as
AD.
well. 2000 AD actually was a big one for me. I used to have an art book of, the Sylvester Stallone Judge Dredd movie, which not many people like. I love that movie because it was around when I was growing up. And a friend of mine had a book about the concept art for that. And I remember there was 4 or 5 pages about the wasteland scenes in that really stuck with me. Like, there was a few illustrations of the inside of the church where he gets captured and they're gonna chop him up and eat him and stuff. And anyway, the whole thing just really stuck with me, and I was kind of I always wanted to make something with that kind of wasteland setting, but also sort of being cognizant of the fact that it's not just wasteland. This isn't really full. It's more like slow apocalypse, right? It's not everything has happened and the world is over and there's only a few survivors. The world is kind of still going on. That apocalypse never really happened at any one time, right? There was never one defining moment that was the world is over now. It's kind of you just slowly slid into, this area died off and that area died off and that area died off, and then hundreds of years later you just have these few mega city arcology spires, and everybody else is just screwed, right? There's just nothing left. And that's kind of the world that we wanted to do. So I mean, in theory, you could play out an Elysium style thing, right? In this as well, because up in the top of those corpo towers, life is great. They've got hydroponic food, fresh salads, they're above all the dust and rad storms, they're looking over their balconies, and life is great. But obviously there's this huge sort of weight of drones underneath them to allow that to happen, I guess.
So it's a subtle social commentary, but
subtler than 2000 AD. Yeah.
The well-renowned subtle setting of 2018.
Yeah. The sheer nuance of men with chainsaws for arms, and
yeah, exactly.
Sometimes I wish I had a chainsaw for an arm, mostly when I'm cutting wood, but not much other than
that. Brushing your teeth is always difficult.
Yeah.
And no, if you just replace the saw blade with a bristle blade, and you can get in seconds, mate. It's
it's the future. We should, maybe it could be a stretch goal. We could bio mods. Yeah.
Oh god.
For one.
Zero.
Are you the new Elon Musk, except instead of chainsaws, instead of flamethrowers, sorry, it's chainsaw arms, right?
The brushing company, yes.
Yeah. I'm telling you, it's gonna get big.
Chainsaw's going straight to the moon, y'all.
Yeah, right.
So, how does character creation go in Salvage Union?
At the moment, we've got a quick start where you have pre-made characters, so you don't have to worry about that, but you can download that for free and just play with them. The core book is going to have character creation, and that's going to be split up into pilot creation and mech creation. Pilot creation is going to be fairly simple. You're going to pick your class. At the moment, we've effectively got 6 classes. There's a hacker, a soldier, a engineer, and so forth. We're planning to expand that to about 12. And from that class, you can pick your gear, your weapons, and some of their abilities, which are the sort of cool stuff they can do. The engineer can do field repairs of stuff. The hacker can unsurprisingly hack things, and so on and so forth. And then you get to the juicy bit, which is the mech creation. Mechs are built from systems and modules. Systems like hardware slots, like their guns or their legs, or things like their survey scanners, like big bulky things. And then there's modules, which are like software systems that slot into them. And those are things like the software that they'd use to hack other mechs, or things that can like make additional coolant flow. We've got like a coolant flow module, which means you can reduce your heat on your mech more quickly. And effectively, you're going to build your mech from a chassis choice, which will confer some sort of ability to you, and also like light, medium, and heavy are different choices with different things you get. And then you're going to slot systems into them and modules into them, and go to town. Basically, that's the broad gist. There'll be a bit more noodliness with the mech creation to a degree, though we are trying to keep that still as simple as possible. But that's where kind of most of our like crunch is really in the mech creation.
So, I mean, in a sense, it works quite similarly to how Quest works now. I mean, if anyone's familiar with it, you basically have, so for the pilot creation, it'll work pretty much the same. So you have your abilities in a kind of like in an ability tree, if you like, and then you sort of pick from those. And then the mechs, the systems and modules work in a similar fashion to the abilities. So it's kind of a mirrored system in that regard. You know, it works in a fairly similar fashion. We just use slightly crunchier rule set to make that happen in order to work with the amount of system slots and module slots and stuff like that.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Like a lot of the systems and modules do confer your mech like abilities or like utilities, I guess. So like a rigging arm is really useful. We have that a lot in play tests of like a player will be like, "Oh, can I pick up that car?" And it's like, "Do you have an arm?" Because you can put an arm on your mech, but if you don't have an arm, then you can't. How do you pick it up?
Yeah.
Simple question, but yeah. So it's thinking about that, and it's also like we didn't want to write like big streams of rules of like here's a list of all the things that a rigging arm can pick up based on its tensile strength, you know. But we do want players to think like, oh, I've got an arm, so what can an arm do? And if I don't have an arm, what can I not do because I've got an arm? And it's that sort of narrative like implied thing, which is what we do throughout the rules to like add complexity without like adding huge loads of like bloat to that complexity, I guess.
There's also a couple of things that we put in there just on the basis of because I really like this in I don't know if you have you played Nier Automata.
I've watched a buddy play it.
Game. Yeah, sure. So there's like you can change out your chips, like your head chips in that, right? Because you play as an Android, and there's one chip which is like your firmware, and it's like it says if you take this out, you die. And you can take it out. You can choose to take it out, and if you take it out, it just fades to black, and it's like game over. Okay, start again. And so we kind of wanted to like put a little bit of that. And so you do have like a comms module is one of the things you have in your mech, and also an emergency escape hatch. And you can take those out, but if you do take those out, then if you take the comms module out, you can't talk anymore. You just can't communicate with anybody else. So you just have to be like silent. And if you take the hatch out, then if anything happens to your mech, your pilot just instantly dies because you can't get out. So it's like we wanted to put those in. So like if you want to take those out to put in that extra autocannon, then by all means go for it. But like obviously you take that risk, right? Like yeah.
Yeah, it reminds me of that, like when you create a GURPS character and you can give them like negatives and you get bonuses to it. Like you can, I think you can give the GURPS character like the mute characteristic, and it gives you like -5, but then you can like buy super strength with or whatever. So it's a bit like that in a weird way. But yeah, I really like that element of the rules. You can even like take their legs off and just have like a gun turret mech.
I mean, there's nothing really stopping you from doing that and then being like, right, okay, and then another player being like, okay, well, I've got a heavy transport mech. Can I just like transport you around? And you're just like, bolt one mech to another, right? Like that's kind of the thing that we're trying to encourage with having these things, and also like it allows them to be sort of like I guess destroyed in the field because of the way that the combat works, like. Potentially your systems and modules can be destroyed, as you would hope in a mech game. And so yeah, we've had that in playtests like a few times, I think now, haven't we, where comms modules have been destroyed, and then it's kind of like, all right, okay, what what am I doing now? And then jury rigging up radios and stuff in the field, and then sort of like trying to get the repairs done is it works out quite well, I think.
Right on.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, we want that sort of free-form, like, emergent play to it, which is why I think we add those elements as well. So you having to, like, adapt in the middle of play to, like, oh no, someone's lost their comms module or lost their legs. How do we solve this? Yeah.
This is a bit of a pickle. Yeah. So, can you rip modules off of other mechs and bolt them onto your own later?
Yeah, so that's the heart of the game, really. So you play as a group of salvagers, and you need to salvage and upgrade to survive. And the idea is the main campaign mode will be quite sort of exploration based. You'll start off with a sort of small, scrappy band of salvagers with some basic mechs in a sort of a relatively small crawler, which will have its own like sheet, similar to if you've played Scum and Villainy, a sort of a spaceship sheet on that. And you'll go out into the wastes and you'll go on missions and explore, and within that find salvage, and a lot of that salvage will be on other mechs, of course. And you'll bring it back, sort through it all, and then you'll be able to, within the downtime, craft your own new systems and modules and so on and so forth. And to be more specific to that, you don't quite, so you would say take a auto cannon or a comms module from a mech and like bring it back in theory, but then you'd actually sort through it and you just get a part from it. So you'd get like the wiring looms from the module or the simple mechanisms from the auto cannon, and then you'd use that specific part to then construct other things, because simple mechanisms can also be used in like locomotion systems, and wiring looms can be used in lasers. So the idea isn't that you'd get a part and slap it straight on. You'd get a bit from a part and then you'd craft it into other things. So it's quite a lot more noodly in that respect. And again, we wanted to put that into the downtime, so you have a bit of time to look through the book and work out what you want to do with it.
Right, because I think a lot of the fun. A lot of the fun for me, in sort of like particularly in like Mech Warrior 3, was actually like, and I think it's the same in a lot of RPGs actually, is like spending 3 hours in character creation, right? Like it's it's not necessarily always about the gameplay. So like for that part of it, we wanted people to be like, oh yeah, no, this is cool. Like I'm just gonna go away now, have a think, and then say, oh, okay, well if I use this here and I use that there, and then I can make all of these things and put it all together.
Right. So, ripping something off of an enemy mech is more in line with, like, butchering an animal than, full Gurren Lagann smashing things together.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, again, it's sort of like it's a post-apocalyptic world. Everything's in a bit of a state already, especially in the middle of a battlefield. So the idea is you're going to get, like, one or two good parts from the part that you can then build into other things, yeah.
Right on, right on. I mean, it's a good way to handle it.
Yeah, I think in playtesting we found that doing it the other way kind of really slowed the game down as well, because what happens if when we were sort of giving the actual stuff, even when we were telling people what the parts that they got were, people were kind of like, oh right, okay, cool, and then it's like all of a sudden the game grinds to a halt as people start looking through and seeing like, oh, what can I do with this new stuff that I've just got? Whereas if you say, okay, you get basically like a token, like a Tech 1 token, or like a salvage token, and then you take it home to the crawler and start picking through that sort of big bundle of like crap that you've got out of the wasteland, basically, and try and find those few little diamonds in there, and then pull those out and use those. Then people are kind of like, okay, cool, like I have X tokens, great, we'll take those back and we'll see what we get then. Rather than actually sort of tying up the game in knots, while we're sort of like, oh, okay, well, let's try and take this thing down, and then we'll spend like 3 hours in the field like jury rigging everyone's stuff up.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Salvage actually works as currency in the world in that regard as well. So like your gold, as it were, or credits, is actually your salvage. I mean, you can trade like a salvage for the upkeep of all your mechs, for example, is going to be like about salvage, and then you can spend salvage at the cantina to pick up rumors and stuff like within the sort of wider downtime systems, or like trade with other salvagers for things you might need, and so on and so forth. So yeah.
Hey buddy, I'll give you a ton of some miscellaneous junk if you tell me what you've heard.
It might be something it's basically like buying magic cards on eBay, right? Like
I think you have better luck with the ton of miscellaneous junk.
Yeah. I mean, you could always use those magic cards in a chaff launcher, though, right? Like, get the foils up in the air, right?
Or as kindling, you know.
Yeah, or kindling. Yeah.
Out in the woods, all you have is your 60-card burn deck. It's never been more appropriate.
Sorry. Tickled me that.
Yeah. Also, I forgot to mention earlier, the cover for the book, as was mentioned, the manual design, really, really cool. Love it. It is fantastic.
Yeah, thanks, man. Yeah, I was really pleased. Like I say, it was one of the first kind of things that I have a tendency to do that, actually. I tend to design the cover for a thing before I actually even know what's going inside. It's kind of like, cover, but judge it by its cover, because that's usually where the direction we kind of take things in.
That was the initial design meeting, right? You were like, "I've designed this cover, Panny. Go to town."
Yeah. Go to town, yeah.
I should be fair now. You've been working on this in your mind space for quite a while, actually. Like the lore.
Yeah, no, it'd been around for years. Yeah. So I started. Well, like I say, it was when Games Workshop announced the new version of Adeptus Titanicus, which I think was like 2018, something like that, 2017, 2018.
Yeah, I remember my friends getting into that momentarily, as people often do with GW stuff.
Yeah.
Ooh, new
buy all the models and then leave them on the screw in the drawer. Right?
Yeah. Just on a pile of boxes behind you.
Yeah, I have a bunch of Games Workshop stuff holding up on my monitors right now. They've got Warhammer 40k 3rd and 4th edition in there, I think, and Inquisitor, and yeah.
A person of taste, I see. 3rd edition.
No, I've just been around a while.
As have I.
That was current when I played.
Nice. Yeah, that was the 1st edition I played. So
eons and eons ago.
I thought was Dark Millennium 3rd edition or 2nd edition?
I think
that's second.
Second edition.
I think second edition was the first one I played. Then
yeah. Third's just third. I think it's like 9th now or something.
It's 9th. Yeah.
Good lord.
9th and 3/4 or something. Yeah.
9 into quantum, yes.
Yeah.
9 into quantum.
Yeah.
Well, anything else you guys would like to bring up about Salvage Union?
I mean, buy it on Kickstarter. Support it on Kickstarter. And we're doing playtests. That's really cool. So if you join the Salvage Union Discord and you're interested in playing, I'm running weekly playtests at the moment. Usually Tuesdays and Thursdays, but about 7 p.m. GMT-ish. That's what I aim for. And so if you're interested in jumping in and playing, that's what I'm doing. And we're building up a pretty cool community over at that Discord. And as we sort of go towards playtesting the campaign mode, which we mentioned as well, which is the core of play, really. I'm really looking excited to dive into it a bit more and get salvaging and get exploring and get into the wastes and all that jazz.
And we should have because we've burned through all of the stretch goals that we had listed, but then with Dragon Meat having been this weekend, we've not had a chance to really edit the page. So I think today / tomorrow there'll be a load of new stuff going up on the Kickstarter page, so be sure to check it out. And because there's it's gonna be quite exciting. I think we've sort of managed to work out some of the kinks in potential production. We didn't want to promise anything that we couldn't deliver, so we've been sort of looking at it, and I think we found some solutions, so we're going to be putting a lot of new stuff on there, I think.
Right on.
Mm-hmm.
I have one last question.
Mm-hmm.
Can I go fishing for biotitans with my mech? Just cast a giant mech-sized fishing rod out to sea?
I mean, this has happened in one of my Fiffy D&D games. Someone got I think it was a beholder tooth, and then they were like, "Can I use it to fish in the abyss?" Yeah, go for it. So they started fishing. Yeah, and it was like, okay, I just roll on my D100 demon table, and oh no, red horned devil has appeared from your fishing rod. So I mean, if you're playing in my game, I'm a chaos demon, so I if you give me a chance to roll on a D100 table, I'll probably take it. But within the actual lore, I'm not sure it'll be canon. I don't think officially canon, but
I think in the official canon, which I've just decided now, is that in Salvage Union, Kaiju fishes you. I think probably anglerfish kind of thing. I can imagine a kaiju with a big bit of juicy salvage on the end of a sort of sort of claw thing, and then like you come too close, and then it's like. I think I kind of want to commission some art for that now because I think that sounds really cool. So thank you for the idea. I'm
You're
just going
welcome.
to steal that. That's mine now.
Enjoy it.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't actually explored like water, as it were, like underwater huge mech oil
No, we
rigs.
haven't.
One of the playtesters suggested that, which was a cool idea, and that's an area to expand the game into beyond its horrible radiation-torn desert setting.
I think that could be quite a cool module actually, potentially. Sort of the sort of a sort of seaside or sea-based one, especially like a shallow sea could be really cool.
Yeah.
Like it's also a Sargasso Sea sort of thing where you can kind of wade through a lot of parts, but then some parts are maybe deeper. And like you say, you've got sort of oil rig arcos and crawlers and stuff like that. Yeah, and maybe that's where anglerfish kaiju is. Yeah.
I look forward to seeing the anglerfish.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, excited about that now.
Well, I think that just about wraps this up.
Excellent. Thanks for your time.
And, thank you so much.
Yeah, and thank both of you for coming on. It's been great talking to you.
Yeah, no, thanks for having us. It's been a fun chat.
And for everybody watching at home, have a good night.
Bye, guys.
No.